Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really powerful but kind of counterintuitive idea that the very moments of the greatest fear in the market are actually the moments of the greatest opportunity. We're going to break down how you can learn to turn that panic into profit. All right, let's jump right into the heart of it. You think the biggest money is made when the market is cruising along and everything's great? Not even close. Real fortunes are forged in the dark. When the screens are bleeding red, the headlines are screaming about a crash, and just about everyone else is running for the hills.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to pull back the curtain on the contrarian secret. Then, we'll look at cold, hard proof from past crises and soak up some wisdom from investing legends. After that, we'll get into the mechanics of why a crisis creates opportunity. And finally, we'll tie it all together into a new philosophy you can use.
Okay, so what is this big secret? What's the one thing that really separates the smart, patient investors from the rest of the crowd when a market downturn hits? At the end of the day, it all comes down to this one simple but really profound idea. When you see extreme fear gripping the market, your brain should automatically see the potential for extreme opportunity. While the crowd is dumping everything in a panic, the wise investor quietly steps in, seeing a once-in-a-while chance to buy great stuff on sale. And look, this isn't just some nice-sounding theory, right? History is absolutely packed with powerful, undeniable examples of this whole principle in action. Let's take a look at some of the biggest crises and see how it all played out. Let's start with a big one, a moment many of us probably remember all too well, the 2008 global financial crisis. It seriously felt like the entire financial system as we knew it was about to just disappear. The fear was something you could almost touch. The market was in an absolute free fall. Just look at the Indian Sensex, for example. It went from a high of 21,000 all the way down to 8,000. That's a drop of around 60%. It was just pure carnage out there. And yet, for those who had the conviction to act, this crisis was the very thing that laid the foundation for generational wealth. Investors who bought into amazing companies like HDFC Bank or Asian Paint during that time of weakness saw absolutely incredible gains over the next decade. It's just a dramatic example of this principle at work. Okay, let's jump forward to a more recent example, one that's probably still fresh in everyone's mind. The unbelievable market crash when the COVID-19 pandemic first hit. The whole world just stopped, and nobody had any idea what was coming next. What was so nuts about this one was the speed. In just 1 month, markets fell by a staggering 40%. The selling was just relentless, fueled by this massive wave of global fear. But the rebound, wow, it was so fast and so sharp that it created some of the quickest multi-baggers in history. These are stocks that multiply your investment many times over. Companies like Deepak Nitrite and Dixon rewarded people who bought the fear almost instantly, while anyone waiting for things to get clearer was just left in the dust. So as you can see, this idea of buying fear isn't some newfangled trick. It's a timeless, battle-tested principle that the absolute greatest investors in the world have been preaching for decades. You've probably heard this one from Warren Buffett before, right? It perfectly captures everything we're talking about today. It's so simple to understand, but man, as anyone who's lived through a crash knows, it is incredibly difficult to actually do when your own emotions are going crazy. And his longtime partner, the brilliant Charlie Munger, had a slightly different but just as powerful way of looking at it. He believed that companies that are forced to go through really tough times, the ones that have to innovate and get lean to survive, often come out the other side so much stronger and more resilient. And this quote from investor Howard Marks just nails the point. To get exceptional results, you simply can't follow the herd. A crisis is the ultimate test, right? It separates the average investors who panic and sell with the crowd from the exceptional ones who use that panic to their advantage. So let's get into the mechanics a little bit. Why exactly does a market crisis create such a golden opportunity? What's really going on under the surface? It's so funny how our brains are wired, isn't it? Logically, the biggest risk of losing money is when prices are at all-time highs, and the risk is lowest after prices have already fallen a ton. But emotionally, we feel the exact opposite. We feel safest buying at the top and absolutely terrified buying at the bottom. It's completely backwards. A crisis is basically a gift for investors who are prepared. First, you get to buy fantastic companies at huge discounts. Second, and this is key, it actually reduces your long-term risk. Third, you get to be on the right side of a massive wealth transfer from the emotional sellers to the rational buyers. And fourth, you can act confidently because you know these cycles are a normal, repeating part of history. And we see this story play out with individual companies time and time again. Maruti Suzuki survived huge shocks to completely dominate the market. Bajaj Finance overcame major fears to become a lending powerhouse. And Eicher Motors, they went from almost going bankrupt to becoming a cult brand. These huge setbacks actually forged them into stronger, more dominant companies. All right, let's bring all this home. How can you take all of this and build it into a powerful, real-world philosophy for your own investing journey? The single most important takeaway is to completely reframe your mindset. A market crash is not a threat to your wealth. It's an invitation to act differently, to think long-term, and to build an even stronger foundation for your future.
So what does this invitation ask of you? Well, it's asking you to be disciplined when everyone else is losing their cool. It's an invitation to quietly build your positions while the market is noisy and chaotic. And it's an invitation to trust the long-term process when everyone else is just reacting to their emotions.
You have to remember this. The fear, the panic, the scary headlines, it's all temporary. It always passes. But the smart, rational decisions you make during those temporary moments of fear, that can create wealth that is permanent. I absolutely love this last thought. Fortunes aren't really made in the good times. That's just when they're revealed to everyone. They're actually created in the bad times. So the next time the market is in a full-blown panic, the question isn't what you might lose. The real question is, what future fortune are you being invited to build right here, right now?